Hello everybody, VG Time back again with another deck profile. And this time, as you can see from the thumbnail, we're looking at the King Cole leader from the latest set that we have here in the Dragon Ball Super Card Game, set 13. So, deck is kind of weird. I like it. A lot of cards to go over, a lot of new text. This is going to be a longer than normal video. If you don't want to go through the whole journey, I understand. There's going to be timestamps down below. But this is, because of the amount of new cards, going to be basically the Snyder Cut. This is going to be a long video. But you're going to enjoy it by the end of it. All right, so, leader. King Code. So, King Code, it becomes very evident what his whole strategy is as soon as you read the permanent, which is that you could take field extra cards with cost of 2 and reduce their energy by 1. So, obviously, he works with field extra cards. He has an auto that when you play him, you get to put a particular field extra card into play. I like to call those co-leaders. The reason why I do that is because a lot of times those texts could be on a leader, but then you wouldn't be able to read the card, so they make a field extra card to make up for all the text they want to put on the leader. Has an auto once per turn that when you play one of those field extra cards, you get to add up to 1 card from your life to your hand and draw a card. So he has Self-Awakening if you choose to do so. And then Awaken, he untaps 2 when you have 4 or less life. On the back side, he has the same permanent and auto as the front side. Except for with the auto, you do not have the option of taking an additional life. And then as an activate battle once per turn, you're allowed to send one of your field extra cards with a cost of 2 or less to the drop to give him plus 10k for the battle. So that's good on offense. He becomes a 25k. On defense is also good. Solid. Wish it wasn't once per turn, but I understand why. Because on offense, I would just be insane. Just like shotgun your whole field and you just become too big. But still very good. So let's talk about the co-leader. That's this bad boy right here. Might as well bring them both together. King Cole's Dynasty. This is a field extra card as well. And in the case of this one, it makes it so that when you play the additional field extra cards that go with this deck, that it doesn't kill this one off. And as long as it has a cost of 2, it doesn't remove any other field extra cards. But you're limited to only 1 field extra card of a specified name. So that's why the ability to use this to get rid of 1, to replay 1, is pretty important. But this is, overall really solid strategy. Now this deck leans more towards a control, or at least a control-ish mid-range deck. And I'll go over at the end when I believe this strategy is viable as that kind of a deck. But let's start with the archetypal field cards. We have a new ruler. I play this one at 4 as my favorite one. Basically, when you play this card, you get to add up to 1 of your life to your hand. So again, Self-Awakening. And then you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and you get to add 1 mono green card to your hand. So it doesn't matter what kind of card it is. It could be a battle card, unison, extra card, whatever. Then it has the ability that if it is sent to the drop area by 1 of your skills, you get to draw 1, then choose 1 card in your hand and discard it. So overall, just a good ability to dig through your deck. Then we have Unstoppable Invasion. That says if your leader card is this guy, you get to, when you play, you get to add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. Then 1 of your leader cards gets plus 10k power and double strike for the turn. So playing this, you get to, again, execute some Self-Awakening. But if you're on the back side, you can choose not to take the life or take the life and give it plus 10k and double strike. Or even on the front side. And then this one, if it is sent to your drop area by means of a skill, you get to choose up to 1 of your opponent's unisons and remove a marker from it. Now that seems innocuous, but it's actually a very powerful ability. because of the leader's activate battle. So now it's no longer safe to go in on a unison, because if you're not aware of how unisons work, if they gain power boosts from something or skills from something and then you remove a counter from it, it loses those power boosts and skills from something. Even if it's its own skills, like if you have a unison that says -3, give it plus 5k and triple attack or double strike or whatever, you could, sorry about that, you could sack this card off, remove a marker. If it doesn't even kill the unison, it will wipe those skills off of it. Anticipated Onslaught. This one says that if your leader card is this guy, when it's placed, you get to play up to one mono green Frieza's clan or Frieza army when energy costs are 2 or less in your hand and play. So, play this card, play one of the little guys, get your little guy skill. Pretty straightforward. Then it has auto once per turn that when it's sent to the drop area by one of your skills, you get to pop a 2 or less battle card. Then lastly, we have Terrify Realization. This one is the Anthem effect, or it pumps your field as long as you have 4 total field extra cards out there. The little guys become bigger and threatening. And then it has an auto that when it's sent to your drop area, you get to add up to 1 card. Oh no, not that. When you play it, you get to add up to 1 card from your life to your hand and draw a card. So, all in all, very strong. And just a clarification, I forgot, it's when you sack any other one. So you actually get doubled up abilities, right? So let's say you sack this one, you get to do your draw 1, discard 1, and then this card will pop a card. Or you get to remove the counter from the unison, this card will pop a card, and so on and so forth. All right, unison. King Vegeta Umbro Invader. So this card right here I think is extremely strong because it helps you cheat on energy. So you activate main, you get to choose up to one of your mono green extra cards with the energy cost of 2 or less in the field skill and in your hand and activate it. So +1, play one of these guys. So that makes it so that the turn that you play it is not bad because you're not skipping from playing one of these cards. You get to play it. +1, play one of those cards, get your leader proc to draw, do whatever you got to do. The -1 makes your opponent choose one of their battle cards with cost 5 or less and pop it. And then -3 gives it triple strike and then plus 5k for each of the field spells that you have out there. So the least it's going to be is 20k because you're going to have the default field spell. But if you happen to be in Magical Christmas Lane and you have all 5 out, it becomes a 40k triple striker. Berry Blue. Top 7 Searcher, which is very rare. Usually we get top 3s, top 5s. Top 7 for any of these cards right here. Now her second ability makes her a great candidate for this card because you could pay green to activate one of these from the drop. So you get to play this off the unison per se. Draw your card off your leader, play the Berry Blue, top 7 search, and then pay green and play another card for your drop area maybe the following turn so that you don't have to use a resource in hand to proc your leader. Frieza. King Code without Frieza doesn't make sense. So we have a Frieza. This one is also a great candidate for Unstoppable Invasion. When you play that card, or when you play this card, you draw a card. And then you have the option of, on auto, when you play the card, to pay double green to board wipe your opponent by sacking one of your field extra cards and giving them 16k in double strike. So it becomes a 20k double striker for the turn that also drew your card and board wiped your opponent. Now we're going to get into the counters. We have King Cold. He's a counter attack. He gets reduced in cost by each of your green extra cards in the battle area. So he could go down to 1. He negates the attack, comes into play, and he's like a poor man's Topo. He makes it so if your opponent is going to attack leader, they have to discard a card from their hand. This won't save you if your opponent has a book in their hand and you're down to 1 life, but it will deter them early in the game from doing too much stuff. Cooler, Effortless Strike. Card is very cool. It's basically Preemptive Strike, but with a body. And then it happens to have the ability that when you play it, if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, they discard a card. That's very easy to proc nowadays. A lot of decks get a lot of cards in their hand. So being able to strip a card from your opponent's hand is a little helpful. He gets reduced the same way that King Cold does for each of your green extra cards in the battle area. So he could also go down to 1 as long as you have 3 of these cards out there. Boss Monster. Golden Frieza, Pinnacle of the Clan. So this card right here has Deflect and Double Strike. So you're already starting off pretty decent. Permanent that it gets its cost reduced by every 2 green extra cards in the battle area and the drop area. The lowest it could go down to is 3. So you need to have a total of 4 of these extra cards between the battle area and drop area, which should be easy to do. Then it has Activate Main, where you could sack one of these field cards to restand it and make your opponent discard a card and choose one of their battle cards, ignoring barrier, and place it in the drop area. So it doesn't KO, so if it has any KO procs, it doesn't happen. And kind of skipped this on the counter train, but Royal Supremacy. This card right here, I think, is very strong. So what it does, it negates an attack, and then it has the option of popping up to a total cost of 3 in battle cards or less. So that in and of itself is good and is pretty much worth the 2 energy. But if you happen to have 3 of the field cards out there, this card is free. So you have your static 1 and then 2 more, card is free. Now to the non-archetypal cards. Agent of Destruction, Unison. I believe this is a staple in any green-based control deck to be able to just clear an entire board when you need to. You just play this, board wipe, keep it moving. It also pressures with Critical, which is also very good for control-less strategies, and has Hand Rip. 2 Great Sandman and 2 Paragus for super combos. Assuming you have these, no one should really be able to out-shotgun you simply off the strength of that, unless, of course, they're playing black, because they have usually so many more cards to combo with, but still very good. Charismatic Villain. We're playing a Unison, one that we hope to stay out there for a while. Charismatic Villain is good at staving off a lot of early plays. Just a solid card overall. That's why it's one of the best counterplays. 2 copies of Son Gohan Hidden Might. This guy right here is our barrier removal. It's easy for us to get down to the 3 life that this card requires for it to cost only 2 to pop a battle card, ignoring barrier. Then you have a 25k Double Strike Beater. If you need to remove a counter from a Unison to kill it off, this also gives you that option as one of the effects. Ultimate, Grade 8 Mass Saiyan Primal Carnage. Granted, we have a lot of options for ultimates nowadays. We're kind of actually spoiled. This is the one I chose over, say, Cell Xeno, because I don't think the math works out right. And you can build it so the math works out right, but I don't really want to go through that effort. There's also Kai. Kai is, of course, great. There's also Heroines. Heroines is also pretty good. This card, though, closest comparison is really Heroines. The reason why I like this card over heroines in this particular deck, or green decks in general, is because this card does not require your opponent to heavily misplay. Also, heroines is limited to how good your opponent's deck is. This right here, again, works on a battle card, but then you have the option just paying 5 and playing a big dumb guy if their deck doesn't present anything worth popping. While heroines, if they don't present anything worth stealing, it just sits in your hand. And you saw that with Joe's deck profile on Vegex. If you didn't get a chance to see that, go ahead and check it out. I have it up in the card. But he actually spoke about that. He said, you know, he had it in his hand. He could have played it, but there wasn't really anything worth him snatching to even do that with. So he just decided to kill his opponent. Well, you might not have anything necessarily worthy of killing with this, so you could just play this for 5 and kill your opponent. Then lastly, Dormant. So Dormant, this is the least necessary card in the deck. And the reason being is because we got this card now, and we also got Hidden Clones from Battle Evolution. And as such, you could play those as substitutes for this. You could like play 2 more Supremacies and a couple of Hidden Clones, or 4 Hidden Clones, however you want to do it. But you know, we all know what Dormant does. It's hard for me to recommend newer players getting this card right now just because of how expensive it is. But if you have them, great. You put them in your deck. Your deck becomes a smidge better with it versus the other alternatives. So I mentioned in the beginning that there was going to be a checklist of things that I require from a controlling mid-range / control deck, and whether or not this deck actually can accomplish it. So point number 1, and I'll put these points above my head right here. So point number 1, you have to have a card advantage engine that matches or outpaces the card advantage engines that exist in the meta at the time. So does this deck do that? Yes and no. It does get cards. It does do it at an okay pace. Just as a lot of decks right now, hands just get insanely high. So it doesn't really outpace it. That's one of the issues that also Invoker kind of ran into and things like that, is that even though it gets a lot of cards, a lot of decks get a lot of cards right now. So it no longer has the hand advantage edge that it used to have. But still, it has every other box checked off. That's why Invoker is still good. Second thing is, you have to be able to trade one of your cards for multiple of your opponent's cards. This deck does that pretty well. We got Royal Supremacy, we have the Frieza, we have this Frieza. In this particular build of the deck, we have the Unison. We have this card right here that when used in conjunction with the other cards could also trade card for card, or multiple cards. So overall, I think that does that. It checks that box. Next up, you have to be able to cheat on energy. So we came that by the leader reducing the cost of these cards, the Unison being able to play these cards for the free, you know, some of these cards being able to play out the other cards, and these cards existing making these cards cheaper. And another way that you can cheat on energy is by being able to play cards in your opponent's turn, thus making cost reduction, you know, a little more moot. So you also have that going on with the deck by having these counterplay guys and then having a free negates. So it's able to cheat on energy. And then last but not least, you need to have finishers that are hard to interact with, or difficult to interact with at least, which is why Invoker is so powerful, is because you have Catastrophic Blow plus the Goku, hard to interact with. You have Victory Strike, difficult to interact with. With Baby, you have Turning the Tide, difficult to interact with. You have, you know, just so many cards that you have that are difficult to interact with. And this deck also accomplishes that. The leader gets big. The extra card makes leader a double striker and like 35k. This guy gets out of control. These cards are able to stay out in the field. In this particular build, you have this Unison, which is very difficult to deal with. Grade 8, the Frieza. So you have, fairly difficult to interact with finishers. Frieza not so much so, but definitely grade 8 Unison's leader. So it accomplishes at least 3 of the 4. In some cases it does all 4. Some cases it only gets 2. It all depends on what matchup it goes against. But I think overall this deck this is a good foundation to start with. If you have other cards that you want to add to the deck and swap out, feel free to do so. But this is what I have so far. It's been doing okay. And I hope you guys enjoy it. This is VG Time signing out.